Today's guest is Perryn Olson. He's a fractional CMO for hire at AltCMO. Perryn, thank you for coming on the show.
Appreciate you having me.
Yeah, and I think it's the first time we chatted. I think we've been connected on LinkedIn since it says 2015.
Wow.
But
And
I
you've been
think
on
it's
a
the
while.
first time we've actually, jumped on a call or something or
Yeah.
chatted.
Yeah. I was actually like hearing your voice is like it wasn't what I pictured, so I assume this is probably our first time talking. So
That's funny. I was on LinkedIn early. You're
yeah.
fairly early as well. I know you've been in and around construction for a long time, but
hmm
you know, I've always thought of you, without meeting you, as an early adopter of things. Is that correct?
Fairly, not like bleeding edge, but yeah, I try to be an early adopter in tech, marketing, things like that.
Yeah, for sure. And throughout this whole time, you've basically been on the marketing side of construction and technology related to construction.
Yeah. Yeah. Outside of the few renovations I've done at my house, I'm not a construction guy by any means. You don't want me in a field. The picture you see on me on LinkedIn of me and excavator was a dig this in Vegas, not a real I mean, it was a real excavator, but it was not a job site. It was definitely not doing work. But no, I don't ever impersonate. I don't ever pretend to be a contractor. I just definitely
Sure.
love the industry and the people, and been blessed to work in it for almost 2 decades.
Yeah. How'd you get into it?
Referral, simply a referral, almost like 20 years ago from a referral partner that ran an IT firm that eventually went to work for a while. But it became a mentor of mine and things like that. But yeah, just kind of one thing led to another. One good client led, he referred us to others, and then decided went to go niche down and uh, really started talking to them like, hey, is there a need for someone that can really help with the construction marketing side? And 5 out of 5 clients said yes, and I just went for it. That was
Yeah, I mean,
a
yeah,
while
for
ago.
sure. Yeah, because, I mean, right now on LinkedIn, there's a lot of people that talk about marketing and construction, but I must imagine when you first started, there wasn't a lot of people talking about this.
No, I mean, I'll say I was 20 years younger, but I was also just I was constantly like, well, whatever, kid. Was kind of the term I got a lot of times, and it was I tell variations of the story a lot of. Um, when I was in mid 2000s, it was very often I would work with kind of the second generation or third generation that was coming in, and you'd hear the dad generally say, "Well, it's just marketing; they can't screw it up," and like that makes you cringe now because we understand how important marketing is to any company, regardless of the industry. But in construction, 15 years ago, 18 years ago, it was like, whatever, it's just marketing, it's just a website. But it was also in the kind of the tag I kept hearing it, and I could almost feel it coming at times. It was like, you know, you know, son, we don't sell buildings off our website. And I'm like, but you lose them. And that was usually they think I'm just being a smart ass kid. And I know that. But generally, after we go through all the process and stuff, we launch, and you get a call a week later, a month later, 6 months later from the dad. It's like, HR is like saying we're getting all these qualified applicants now, or we actually got a few leads off our website. What'd you do? It's like no marketing, no SEO, just purely, or no digital marketing, or ads or anything, just purely fix the positioning. You sometimes a logo update, but fix the website, like the content on there. Like sometimes just adding a safety page to a construction website in that mid fit 2000s, that would instantly make more qualified applicants because it was showing the potential, prospective employee that you care about their safety enough to promote it on the website.
Yeah. I mean, I think, I had a marketing agency too, and a lot of times, the thing with the marketing companies, you have to be able to show results, and for
Yeah.
some companies, it's harder than others, right? If
Yeah.
they're refined, they've been doing things for a very long time, but if these companies, in the construction, they're making a lot of money,
Yeah.
and they're not putting a lot of effort into this. So if you were to do some, targeted things,
Yeah.
you're able to show them something very tangible. Relatively soon.
Yeah. And there's always these fun stories. There's one client I had years ago, and called Circle Inc. And it was like, why do you want to do a rebrand? And he's like, well, I'm changing how we operate the company. My kids are coming to the company, so we're now going to be Circle LLC. And I was told I should talk to you. I'm like, do you ever have people wonder what you do? And he's like, yeah, all the time. I'm like, because your name's Circle Inc. INC. Like, so I
Well,
convinced.
how did the name come about?
I was just I was trying to ask like why am I here? Essentially, why'd you call a marketing person in? And I was referred to him by, I found out it was a very good friend. It's like, you need to talk to Perryn. And so it's kind of like, I'm, you know, trying to start the conversation of what was necessitating that. Cause usually you find out there's bigger pains. It was literally just a legacy thing with legal thing to him. He thought I just changed the name from Inc. to LLC. He didn't really understand. So it was, and then all of a sudden, and I was like, do you tell me if people confuse what you do? He's like, yeah. He goes, actually, I was in the interview the other day with a guy for like 2 hours, and I went to offer him a job, and the guy goes, "What do you guys build?" He at least knew it was a construction company, and he's like, "We build levees and and earthwork and stuff like that." And he's like, "Oh, I want to build buildings." And the guy got up and left, and he's like, "That was one of the best applicants he's ever had in his life in his office." And it's like that, just a complete waste of time is what. Like, all right, so at least convince them to be Circle Construction. And then when we did their website, we did the new logo, we did the website, we called them Earth Movers. Nothing groundbreaking, but for them just to tag themselves as earth movers, it described what they did, and it told people that were applying there, we move earth. Purely, it sounds so simple, but man, it was like I remember trying to pitch him that, and I was like, he's not going to go for it. He'll never. And he went. He loved it, and it worked. And it was just a simple logo update, website. I think we did some stationery, and that was really it. But it changed that company and how they thought about themselves, and uh, just those kind of simple things. Now that's kind of a more of a in-depth exercise of like a story brand that we might get to something like Earth Movers, things like that. But it was just something that was like how we capture. Like, we kind of jokingly, when I was describing to my own team, like, "Hey, these people don't build buildings; they move Earth." And they're like, "Oh, we should call them the Earth Movers," and we just kind of ran with it. So,
Yeah. So those are the early days. I mean,
yeah,
for you, how's what you do evolved?
marketing's not a afterthought or a you know and we're seeing this evolution. I'm heavily involved in SMPS, which is the Society of Marketing Professional Services, which is the trade association for marketers and business developers in architecture, engineering, construction. And I wish everyone knew what SMPS was because it's a great organization. Also, it's a mouthful to explain what SMPS is.
Maybe
Um,
it needs a rebrand.
oh, it's they at least did the logo computer, and there was a massive effort to rename the whole thing. It was kind of like, well, what do you name us? It's like it's that was a big part. Anyway, um, that I'm doing why with SMPS? Oh, this big effort we're doing in SMPS is actually proposals isn't marketing. Like, we're starting to see proposals get pulled away, and actually their last big publication last year called Resources or Blueprint is a huge resource. They actually moved proposals under BD, business development, and I helped a large contractor last year, and they had a 4-person marketing team, and their team was complaining about all this stuff they weren't getting. Like, the operations, like, we're not getting this, we don't get this, and I'm like, those are all marketing things. Why can't, like, as we dug in, they had a 4-person proposal team, not a marketing team. So they end up bringing in more of a social media coordinator stuff. They're now bringing in a marketing director to help do what most people call marketing. So, like, that's one of the big things is just we're not using proposals and marketing synonymously, because there are very different things or different talents. In a smaller firm, you might do both, but it was very much so. Mid-sized company, you could be doing 38 hours a week, 50 hours a week of proposals, but you're the marketing coordinator. So I think that's a big thing. And just the other thing is the acceptance of digital ads. Compared to my peers in other industries, I definitely don't know digital ads as well as that they do because it's fairly new. And I've more used it as a kind of a but somewhat in search. What we can do is more programmatic advertise, kind of get in front of prospects. But it's also one I use more for construction tech clients because the audience is so well defined. We can use digital ads as a great resource, but
Yeah.
just 5 years ago to think a general contractor or trade contractor would use digital ads? No, no way. Like, just it's this kind of acceptance of things, and they're realizing that the game has changed. Like, I've got a new client I'm working with right now that's they called us and they're like, "We're tired of losing inferior competitors. Like, we know they're not better than us." And I'm like, "Well, why are they winning?" "Well, they have better marketing, they have better proposals, they have better websites." Like, all right, well, we can fix that. That's easy. I find that easy and exciting when you can take a good company that doesn't show it and kind of build that wrapper, and help project their awesomeness. It's much easier than doing the opposite and making a bad company look good.
Hmm.
And, because that, even if you can get the leads up and bring in them, get the proposals, it all exposes itself over time.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, yeah, because you have to be an accurate representation of
Yes,
who you are. The reputation is going to follow you around. So,
correct.
but
Yeah.
assuming that you're a good company, I mean, what's a good proposal? Like what, you said it's a different aspect than marketing, but
Yeah.
what's a good proposal? What's the composition of a good proposal team?
Well, I think there's two parts. A good proposal should be client focused, not you focused as the contractor, just as really marketing should be. It should be all about the buyer and have that win-win mentality. Um, but even for this client, they were someone getting that. I was looking through some of their past proposals, and they were getting some of the verbiage, but they were submitting it in Word, essentially. And their competitors had this, in InDesign documents. Some of them looked very good, so it's. I was showing them some stuff I'd done over the years, and they're like, "That's what we're losing to." And I'm like, "Guys, some of these samples I'm showing you are 10 years old." Like, it just this wave of really designed proposals was kind of done a while ago, and I was kind of surprised people are still doing it. But there are small contractors kind of worked their way up, and now they're at a new level, um, and they're competing with people that have in-house marketers, and they don't. So we're just trying to give them some of those tools, at least even the playing field, because it's really cool. Is naturally they are client customer centric, and those people that really they talk when you just have them. Hey, tell me your customer, and they just talk and like how good the customer. And it's not this adversarial relationship that you see a lot in construction that we're oh we hate customers, we hate architects, and things like that. It's I find that's kind of there's two lanes that contractors fall in. Either it's very culture focused, either internally, sometimes externally, the job site, or it's just this we hate everyone.
Yeah, no, that's interesting. You said something interesting earlier. You said with construction tech, things are very well defined,
Hmm.
so it's easier to advertise against them. And you said, it's variable, with let's say GCs and whatnot.
Yeah.
So is that related to like, if you're in consumer products, very well defined, right? So a lot of the marketing, or let's say the demand generation side of it, can be marketing led.
Yeah.
Whereas, a lot of B2B related stuff, sales led, marketing supported. Is that kind of what you're referring to?
Yeah. If you ask most construction companies who they build for, they'll say anyone. They might say, "Oh, we do healthcare, we do whatever." Like they know kind of the market sectors they're in, but they don't really know their ideal client. So one of the things I've been trying to bring into this space, really from the SaaS side, is account based marketing or ABM, where you really hone in on who's your ideal client profile, score it, and then you start building out that. And as you now you totally know about ABM, so that's something that's kind of revolutionary to construction. So I have to position it differently. I'm not coming and saying, "Hey, this is something really new." I'm saying, "Let's go back to basics." Old school sales is about being personal and relatable to your customers and actually caring about them, not 10 million emails that go out, spam emails a month. So how do we identify who those are? And one of the ways I position an ideal client profile is actually it's the first go no go. That's a term that we're used to in construction on the proposal side. Should we pursue this project or not? All right, well, why don't we do the same thing with do we pursue this client? Is this a company that makes sense for us to talk to? And if we build out that ideal client profile, and I like to really include operations people in that scoring, because the worst thing I think marketing can ever do is bring in bad clients. It might boost the revenue, it might boost the egos, whatever. But if they don't fit, they're just going out the back door, and now you're souring the overall, the brand image, and operations hate you. It's there's sometimes a tension between the office and the field and construction. Well, if marketing and sales are bringing in the wrong clients and they don't have to deal with it, the field does. There's a lot of tension. So I love bringing in some people from the field. Like, who are the people you like to work with? What are the things you want to do? And I've had times where you get like a superintendent's like, oh, I love the like one of those. I love putting in digital imaging centers. I'm like, what? You've done like one. He's, oh, I came from another company. We put him in. And he had all this expertise. He's like, I'm like, why that? And he goes, they're really hard but we can get in and out. And he had a personal connect. I think his kid was in one and it caught some disease that like, he had this connection. Like, it saved my kid's life. I want to do this. So he went all in on these projects. And I'm looking at the business developer that brought me in and he's like, I had no idea. I'm like, I mean, that's a diamond in the rough type story, but it's to bring the field in those conversations. Now they also feel a part of the marketing plan. They feel like, hey, we won this client because I had a voice in that. So there's a big rift a lot of times between field and the office, partly because they just don't communicate.
Yeah. So there's all these opportunities and tactical considerations, strategic,
Yeah,
right?
yeah,
The better understanding you have of, the type of individuals and organizations that you're trying to attract, then marketing can take a bigger role
Yeah,
because you can invest things that would put your message in front of those people if you had a very, very good idea on
yeah.
what you're going after.
Well, and then the ripple effect happens too. If you have clients that are better fit, now you have less retention. You have better retention, employee retention. So recruiting costs go like it just keeps building on itself. And it's one of those things you go to a coffee shop, you feel like, oh, these people are me. You go, no, I'm going like I don't feel comfortable as soon as you walk in the door. It's just the music, the vibe, the smell. Like it's the same thing when you work with companies. Some things click and some don't. So I've always said I'd rather have 100 raving fans than 1,000 people that don't really give a shit about me. Like those people are going to come and go, so let's build this fan base and really own it. And that's, you know in the ideal client profile, you're starting to see even on the recruiting side, I've started seeing what's our ideal candidate. And I was like, wow, the first time I saw that from a recruiter, I'm like, this is awesome. Like you understand it's not just about the skills, it's about the people. And how well are they going to fit in that personality and stuff. And there's still vagueness to it, but they're understanding that if I put the right person in, they're going to thrive as a team. Versus if the wrong person in, it potentially drive five more people out.
Yeah, for sure. That makes sense. Um, Fun projects you've done over the years.
But if done something, it's sometimes hard to do something creative in construction. I'm actually working on. We're about to go to print soon with a holiday card. I have a client that is a trade contractor at Omaha called Stacy Contracting. And one of the things we did a story brand exercise with them this year, and instead of just saying they do roofs and siding and gutters and all that stuff, um, we've their story brand helped us understand they sell and offer worry free exteriors. That's the problem they solve is the worry, and that's both the residential and the commercial because they do a lot of multifamily developments. Well, it's like how do I bring in worry free exteriors into a holiday card? Because I really hate the generic Christmas cards that just have like your logo slapped on it and sent in the mail. Um, so I had this idea of building a worry-free gingerbread exterior. So we're building a holiday. I mean, just a holiday card with like, here's your instructions. I actually then like Googled and was brainstorming different like creative ways to do gingerbread exteriors. And I found like you can use Tootsie Rolls, you can use like shredded wheat to make like a thatched roof, and you sprinkle coconut on top. Looks like snow. And I'm like, oh, this is cool. So that's their gonna be their Christmas card. Hopefully, I don't ruin the surprise for their clients, but it's something fun and memorable. It's not going to cost them any more to print. It probably cost us a few more hours to develop the concept, but the printing's gonna be the same. And when their customers get it, they're gonna be like, they're gonna remember it. They're gonna hang it up on the wall. They're gonna show their friends, and so it's really exciting to kind of see that come about. And I'll tell you another risk when it's construction tech. One of my clients for a long time has been actually a former employer was Super Jordan robots. And I was starting to figure out a fun way to do some keywords because there's only so much you can talk about robots. So we've done a few fun things. Some were hit, some weren't. Um, we did a March Madness robot bracket with like R2D2 versus Voltron versus R2D2 won, by the way, in the first season, but it didn't really go. Like as much work as we put into it, it didn't work. We did some coloring sheets, construction robot coloring, like a job site. We did police was a big one. The police one was cool because our customers using their robots would actually take them to schools as a way to kind of educate the community on, these robots aren't bad. It was a way to open that discussion and stuff. But one of the fun one was actually the most successful was really the stupidest. Um, we made a whole page on robot jokes. So about 5% of SuperDroid's web traffic is for robot jokes. It's always the page is always in the top 10. And it is a throwaway page to an extent. I mean, because literally every line of the thing says robot, robot, robot. Um, but what's interesting is we've seen because we have website visitor identification, and I can see if people are looking on our page and stuff, I can also see like what are the first page. And we've had closed deals because somebody found us on robot jokes and they come back a few days later. And now they're looking at real robots, and then they come back a few days later and they submit the contact button and like so we can attribute real deals to robot jokes.
Yeah, I mean, you just never know what's going to
Wow.
work. And I
I
mean,
thought, yeah, I totally thought the bracket challenge would have been a home run. Just no, total bomb. Yeah, the jokes worked.
well, I mean, it's almost like with entrepreneurship and marketing
Yeah,
general. I mean, just the courage to try stuff,
yeah,
and then to keep trying stuff after it bombs, you
Yeah.
know, is, I think, underrated.
Oh, totally. I luckily Superdroid is led by a CEO. I've called the double-edged sword many times. Stephen Wecky is very much a visionary and thinks very different than a typical engineer. Um, but the good and bad of Stephen working with him is if most you go to most AEC professional or executives and you have an idea and they'll ask, is anyone else doing this in this industry? And you say no, they're generally going to say, well, then we're not either. With Steven, if you say no, he's like, awesome, let's go. And you're like, oh damn, what do we do? No, we got to go do this. So, and that's why I also knew I had some forgiveness of like, I posted one day about the robot jokes. So I was digging in. I'm like, hey, look, it's top 10 of the Google Analytics. I've found some leads that have actually come from it, and I've now seen some closed deals from it. And I had somebody comment on my LinkedIn post about it, and they're like, "How did you ever get that approved?" I'm like, "I didn't ask. I just went for it. It was just an SEO thing. We just built an SEO page with a bunch of robot words, and yeah, if you Google robot jokes, Superdorge is one or two. So just and it's got some good jokes. And I didn't write any of them. I just literally combined a bunch of them, edited a few that were be a little more family friendly. So and
Yeah,
so it works. Yeah, construction isn't always as willing to do that, but
yeah,
it's about being more memorable on those things.
yeah.
And sometimes you can get creative with your business model. I had a home builder years ago that he's like, I can build a home in 90 days, guaranteed. I'm like, what do we do with that? I'm like, he's like, well, I started noticing um, w- women and their children are really good buyers, and part of it was his own. He was in his late mid 30s, late 30s. That was kind of the time that a lot of his peers were having second children, and he just was telling. So why is that a good problem? It's like because they're starting to realize that starter home is too small. Like we're going to baby shows, man. Forget the home shows. We're going to baby shows, and we did. Like he would literally be a home builder. If he his buyer persona was pregnant woman pushing a stroller with another baby because if they had that, he would just tell someone and it's like, look, are you doing more than 4 months? Yeah, I can get you in a new home in 90 days, guaranteed. I'll have everything set up, including the crib. And he would do it. And because he also knew he'd figured out he could build a house in 60 days, but the public perception of that was he was rushing and something with corners were getting cut. But he also knew every day after 90 days that he kept his trades on, he was losing money. So we like, how do we build a business model that fit this 90-day thing? So here we had, that was really the goal was how do we not go past 91 days? So we started with client education and all this, and we want to like, and that was even the idea of well, what if we got some of the furniture in? What if we got them actually? What is that hurdle of moving in? And that's when we started really digging into who the buyers, and it was perfect. He's like, I'd rather build 20 of these middle income homes than 5 multi-million dollar homes because this is the people I want to work with. I can get in and out, do my job, and keep going. And it was brilliant. I mean, yeah, I had a GC home builder at a baby show, and he was great. And he didn't want to talk to any first time moms. He only wanted to talk to second time moms. It, yeah. So we actually were.
Insight.
It was great. So we had a few other ideas that were on the table that didn't happen because essentially was backlogged. Eventually hit capacity.
Yeah, I mean, I got a very, very clear vision.
Yeah,
It just makes it easy to execute if you got a
yeah,
very clear vision what you want.
yeah. Very aligned with his customer too.
That's true. Yeah, I guess so. There's just so many things, right? I mean, you have to do things for the customer, but doesn't there's a lot of flexibility on how and what segment and stuff you approach that.
Yeah,
Especially lifestyle businesses. It's so
yeah.
fun to be able to sort of design those to there's pure alignment.
Oh, totally. And that's one thing is it's hard sometimes construction. You don't get as much leeway. Many times they want to be a little more conservative, but if you start looking at the general contractors that are standing out, they generally do something different. Like there's one here in New Orleans. It's not a client. This is just the CEO. Like they call themselves the Renegades. And they've actually have a festival, a fundraiser festival called the Renegade Fest. And in the last year, they've rebranded the company to be Renegades. Like their initial name was Palmisano Construction, and just they've rebranded to Renegade. And it's like what? Because they like we want to do things differently in the industry. They don't really care about pissing off the industry, and they're not doing anything crazy. They just don't do like this. They're not doing the status quo. Is what they're not doing.
Yeah. and you don't you know, the market's big enough that you don't have to make everyone happy, right? You just if you
No.
got like you said, you know, you have a core group of people that just really get it.
Yeah.
Um, the referrals, you have this built-in captive network of people that want to refer you.
Yeah, and it attracts a different type of people. Like, um, I had another client years ago that came to me, and they were really ragtag bunch. Essentially, it was almost like I felt like a Hollywood movie was about to come out of this one. They'd done this big project for the USDA on a greenhouse, and it was just this really loose plans. They'd figured it out, and they loved it, and they got all this award. They were awarded like top contractor of the year with the USDA, and it was going to go. They were going to start building more, and the client came to them and was like, "Hey, you guys proved that this thing could get built, so now you're going to have some competition. I need you to step up your proposal because what you guys did on the first round ain't going to cut it." Um, so they brought me in, and so I was trying to understand who they were, and I'm like, "Why was this project so well? Like, what projects do you not like?" And they're like, "Oh, there was a service disabled veteran owned company, so they had done a big VA hospital project, and they're like, we hated that. It was all paperwork and just check boxes and paperwork and paper. Like we had finished the job 100 days early. We had to have a project manager on site because that's what the contract said. So the guy literally sat at a desk for 100 days doing nothing. So because they were supposed to be on site for that amount of time, no one ever thought they'd finish the project early. So as we're kind of talking, I'm like, okay, what's there's something weird about something going on. Well, everyone in their company was former military special ops. Different branches, they all knew each other through that, but they like to get in, get out, get their job. Like this was not the, you know, get in the work at 7, take off at 3 and go home. And, this is guys that would work 12, 14-hour days, 6 days a week, and then they just knock it out. They like it in their boots dirty. They like it and they harass each other. Um, so we really started honing in on that. Okay, so we started building their brand around this idea of special ops, like this military. So we started using chevrons and like ranking systems. So their superintendents had a certain rank, like a sergeant, and the project manager had a captain, and like we kind of worked through that and put on their business cards and like just all these little things because that was who they were, and it also really helped them understand who they weren't. They found one exception on the team that was not a military person, but it was an all American college athlete, so they understood the teamwork, understood the hard work, the grit, and things like that. So they did not want a pencil pusher. They did not want a construction management company. Like that's not who they were. So
I mean, must have done amazing things for retention and morale.
it was, and it was actually interesting. I have a family friend that I was talking to her, and she's a civil engineer, and I said something about the company. She's like, I was working there when they went through that rebrand, and she's like, to see the shift from them being like confused to be like gung ho. Like all of a sudden they kind of found their calling and they went a little too hard at it, she said. Um, and she's not like a girly girl. She's very much a tomboy. And she's like, she enjoyed it because she was doing their estimating stuff as an engineer for them. She's like, but it gave them focus. And I was like, that's cool because I essentially did that. And like we stayed in touch, but there wasn't any other work for them to do. Um, so it was cool to hear that. It just that kind of internal, because that's one of the things that was always hard about doing on the agency side was you kind of do stuff and then you walk away and you don't really
Sure.
get the benefits, and it's really hard to write case studies. You said earlier, marketing firms, people want to know your results. Well, you do a website and you walk away, you don't always know what's really going on. You can check web traffic, but that's not necessarily what you worked on. It was, I want to know what it helped deliver. And it's one of the things I really love about being a fractional is I can work across multiple brands, but I'm still there. I can see some of those smaller changes that we can make,
Sure.
um, that can really make an impact on a company.
Well, why would a company consider a fractional versus more of a full time rather than just transitional size?
Yeah. One, it's hard to find some of the experience in this industry because for so long marketing wasn't really taken seriously. And so many of the experienced marketers that maybe have 20, 30 years experience are actually proposal experience, not marketing strategy. So there is a huge shortage in AEC for marketing executives that know this space. There's some great consultants out there. I chose the fractional because I could be kind of 1 foot in, 1 foot out. Um, that just fits what I like to do. I like because I came in the agency. I used to work on dozens of brands, at a time, and I like that juggle. But I also
Well, it's
like
a
to
new
see those
challenge,
nuances.
right? It's a new
Oh, it's
challenge. It's like
yeah,
you're not because some of these marketing campaigns when they work, you just have to keep doing them. And,
Yes.
and even if I heard this
Yeah.
once, when I ran my agency, it's like, you know, you're gonna get sick of it before it stops working.
Oh, I remind people that all the time because especially on a rebrand, by the time you get through that whole rebranding process and it goes out to the public, the marketers are done. They're like, "Can we do this again? I'm bored." It's especially these bigger ones. It's if you're working on something for so long, by the time it's done, you're just like, I hear this with like movies. If you're the director or editor of a movie, by the time it's out in the theaters, you don't really care. You're also on another project or two. Yeah. So when I went to my first internal job at the IT firm, I remember the CEO, was a mentor of mine I'd known for many years, and he's like, "What are you worried about?" I'm like, "Oh, working for one brand scares the shit out of me." He's like, "Well, we have a second brand. They did a tech spinoff that was specific for IT," and I'm like, "Two brands really scares the shit out of me." So it was actually the way it worked. They weren't ready to bring me on, right? So I was actually doing some freelance consulting. So it actually kind of allowed me some flexibility to do that. What was actually interesting was because I was a construction specialist, um, and they specialized. They're actually the IT firm that introduced me to construction. Some of my clients, my freelance clients, were becoming their clients. So they're like, "All right, go do all the freelance you want." I mean, I still got my 40 hours ish, in every week, and if I really had to, I would take a day off or do like a strategy session or something. But they love the fact that I essentially convert my client into their clients, and you just talk about making it a sticky relationship. Um, it was interesting. I was a account director from one client, and I walked in and like, "All right, here's what we need to talk about in IT and all," and they're like, "Okay," and then and the meeting ran over. They're like, why aren't you leaving?" I'm like, "I have a meeting in 10 minutes with your CFO or your marketing director." So it's like, I just supposed to be in this conference room in 10 minutes. I literally booked the meetings back to back. One was for the IT firm and one was for me as a marketing consultant. So, um, and so it's why that just kind of allowed me to keep the creative juices, keep some of the skills going as well. Um,
Sure.
so it's also fun to see what other people are doing. And that's one of the things I love about just seeing how brands work and kind of seeing the behind the scenes of companies. So.
Yeah. Well, that goes back to, your work and finding what you love, right? Like
Oh, so
you know yourself pretty well. You know where the areas you get really jazzed up, want to jump out of bed and work
definitely,
on. And you just kind of really focused in on the areas that keep you excited. Hence, you can
yeah,
deliver results because you're genuinely interested in the area.
totally. And still actually still freelance a few projects just because they're not a fit for me as a fractional, and it's still more it's family, friends, and friends of friends. That makes sense. But yeah, I'll finish up work. I coach my daughter's swim team, so I'm gonna go to swim team, come home at dinner, put the kids to bed, and I'll go jump and work on some marketing stuff. And it's fun. Like I'll spend an hour or two, or a few hours on the weekend knocking it out. And very transparent with these, freelance. Like, hey, I do have a full time job. I can move things around, but this is fun. And they understand I have the expertise, but they also understand I have the passion. And usually once I talk to somebody, I kind of like, "Oh, you want to do that? Let's go." And that was the other thing. It was hard when I wasn't a fractional. Um, Before I made that move, it was one of the things I was really struggling with. I had a couple of freelance clients. It's like I'd give them a marketing strategy and like, all right, I'm going to build in some room here that we're going to check in every month for the next 3 months, 6 months. And yeah, 3 months in, nothing happened. 6 months later, nothing happened. It's like, come on. But one of the cool things is fractional is I can make things happen at that point. Like, guys,
Yeah.
this is the strategy. Let's go. Let's go.
Yeah.
Like let's do some fun stuff. And so that's really a really cool thing. I can actually get stuff done because it's really hard for me to put my heart and soul and my energy into a marketing strategy and then nothing happens. Like,
Yeah.
I, and it's happened time and time again. I even had a buddy that got hired by a contractor I'd worked with a few years before, and I'm like, "Hey, how you doing?" And stuff, and he's like, "Oh, it's good. I've been there a couple weeks." And I'm like, "Have you run across my file yet?" And he's like, "No." He's like, "What are you talking about?" I'm like, "Go ask so and so about my report." And he's like, "Okay." And I got a text like 2 days later, "Dude, why are we not doing this?" I literally did like a whole positioning statement on this company because they were really struggling in um, client expectations. They were one of their specialties was actually retail and retail warehousing, and that whole thing of like good, fast, cheap, pick two. Their clients were expecting all three, so they were really good at delivering stuff fast and quality. I'm like, then stop being cheap. Like you got to train that. So I was even gave them some advice and a tagline and like take your logo and literally slant it to make it look like it's fast. Talk about that you can deliver quality at speed and make that your thing. And that way people will pay more money to get your projects built faster, quick, and in quality. And he's like, okay, why do we sit on this for a few? Yeah, it's still been 3, 4 years and they're still sitting on it. So I'm just like, I literally think the CEO is going to have to die for that. Something's blocking it. And I think it's the dad. So,
Sure.
yeah.
What are the you talked about some of these things as well, but what do you think the biggest marketing opportunities are in construction and construction tech over the next bunch of years?
Uh, Biggest opportunity for construction for contractors is the ideal client. Like, just really figure out who you are and make it more operational. If you have to take a step back with something, I really like, even at the IT firm, our CEO was like, look, I'd rather have fewer clients that make us more money than more clients that make us the same amount of money. Like, just it sounds simple when you put it that way, but it was a huge tension for the business development team, for the operations team, is other owners. That, what do you mean we're not trying to grow? We don't want to stay the same. Like, so um, that just really understanding that a lot of times happiness and profit can coexist. It doesn't have to be growth and happiness. So I think that's a big thing. And I've really just been pushing account based marketing with people. And I think that just brings us kind of back to that old school mentality of, let's actually care about our customers and have more one on one conversations. But we're now pairing it with marketing and digital ads and good content. So I find it is really the best of the win win of, we can showcase our expertise, we can educate clients, they're going to come turn hire us, and then they're a good fit. Like, it's just, the other thing with content is you're essentially training your customers. If you're pushing out the content and telling what you can do, and here's what this project should look like, and here's the things to look at, here's red flags on a healthcare site or whatever, you're training them to be better customers. And that's a really powerful thing as well. Or even potential employees, you're training them what fits in your culture, you're training them how to be experts. So I think that's a really advantage. I think we got to be very careful with AI of just how do we not lose authenticity. It's artificial is the first part of AI. It's not authenticity, and I think it can do a lot of good things. Like, when I do my own writing, I generally don't start in there unless I'm just stumped. I'll like, here, give me 50 like keywords, or give me something just to get me going. But I like to like write something and then I put that in AI. I'm like, here, make this better, reword this, give me different ways to describe this, but keep like these 3 words or things like that. And then I'll take it and copy and paste back into the doc I'm working on, and then I still blend the two. Like, it's not a prompt copy paste LinkedIn post, and or I spend a lot of time on my LinkedIn posts sometimes, often. I can spend an hour on a LinkedIn post. Well, that content's really good for SEO for blog, and I'll throw that in AI. I'm like, here, rewrite this LinkedIn post for a blog post, and it'll rewrite it, and then I'll go, oh, that's cool, and then I'll change 30, 40% of it, but it gets it, that bulk of it done, gets it in the right format.
Yeah,
It gives me the list, and then I'll go publish that on our AltCMO site, and
yeah.
that's where I think we need to.
Augmented, right?
Yeah,
Augmented effort, but
yeah,
just starting with your some sort of notes, a
yeah,
creative brief, something on the front end that just sets it in a certain direction.
yeah. And that's like, it's really cool when you write a couple lines of something and you throw it in AI and it shit sits back and it doesn't change the first 2 lines. It's like, oh, it liked it. so, so I did that to me the other day. I'm like, oh, it didn't change that. Interesting. So I was like, huh. Then I'm like, wait, am I writing like a robot now? That was what also started thinking. So I was like, oh, maybe I
Yeah,
wasn't doing good. And sometimes I'll actually take my own content, throw it in AI, put it back, and I'll throw it back in there. Here, rewrite, and just keep throwing it back, and just keep making it better. So you know, I I think AI is, particularly machine learning. I think machine learning is actually more powerful for marketing. There's not really the tools out there to do a lot of it. We do a lot of mundane stuff in marketing. Like, just, I still run many of my reports off spreadsheets, and it's sometimes I have dashboards from all, but they're all different systems. Like, I need to go to this system and put that in the spreadsheet and that one. And I
yeah,
I would love to be able to train AI to just do this every Monday morning for me, because I spend half an hour of my week just doing a couple of reports. And or even to say, here's the reports. Why is that the report? Like, why did that drop? Why did that spike? Things like that, and do some validation on it. That's where I think AI can really go. So I'm excited to see more how the tools are using it, um, internally. Like, One of my clients is Lenark, is a construction management software for more for smaller contractors, and like they've got a cool tool that you put in a set of plans, and then you put in the next one. It'll actually use artificial intelligence and show here's what's changed. Well, a blueprint might be 50 pages. What do you care about? You care about what changed from the first version to the next version to the fifth version, and that system can do all that automatically. And it's like that's cool. That's where some real time savings is going to be for contractors. Like so, I think I just need to. We got to understand where to use it, when not to use it. Um,
Very cool. I love it.
yeah,
Yeah, I was gonna ask you about AI. You went right into it.
it's it's definitely a hot topic. When one of your clients is robotics, AI comes up a lot, and it's actually almost the opposite. People are scared of robots because of AI. I'm like, so like we've had to be very intentional. These are direct control robots because construction is one thing because we do have autonomous robots for construction. They just like one of them is it drives around and does weekly progress monitoring. Like it runs around with 360 camera automatically. Most people really don't care if that's got AI on it, but it's really just autonomous, not AI. But when you start talking law enforcement, they're very scared that there's an intelligent brain. It's like, no, this robot can't do anything unless there's an operator. And that's a very intentional decision that the client made was we want somebody with a badge on the other side operating this and making decisions, not a robot making decisions because the
Sure.
robot will make the decision based on how it's trained, and sometimes it's very obvious to us of why that would happen. And just, I mean, we've seen so much stuff in the news of what the decisions that a human has to make in a split second. A robot's going to make the same kind of decisions and potentially worse. So,
Yeah, for sure. I mean, it has a lot to do with, if there is a certain concern perception, I mean, you can spend all the money in the world, but it's not
yeah,
very good ROI to sort of fight some of this stuff
no,
and
yeah,
work with it and clarify it up front, right?
yeah, yeah, totally. Trying to be upfront is be as transparent as you can. That makes sense. And it's the other issue I do find with, I think one of the hardest things in marketing is you always have varying levels of education with people, whether you're talking robots, AI, things like that. You don't know if you're talking to an AI expert or you're talking to, a novice at it. And I think that one of the things in marketing you have to do is kind of build that foundation for people and then work their way up. One of the lessons I learned a long time ago was, some people think content in marketing is a bad thing, too much content that you don't want to keep doing. But somebody gave me this idea of if you stop your buyer's journey, they're going to go pick it up somewhere else. And I was
Got it.
like, ooh, like that's scary that you potentially got somebody to 90 yard or 10 yard line, I guess. You're 90% there, and someone else finishes it for you because you just I didn't want to be a jerk. I didn't want to overpass. I didn't want to spam. Like take them down the process. Take them down the steps.
Yeah, and because different people need different things, right?
Oh, totally.
And is it some people they just scan, oh, the website's there, it look credible, okay,
Yep.
check, and then pick up the phone. Other people like, I don't want to talk to anyone. I'm going to go through everything myself, know 90% of it, and then by the time you meet, that's 10% of the decision.
Oh, totally. There's tons of stats out there that 66% of the buying journey is done before they ever make contact.
Yeah,
I do you want to talk about scaring some old school leaders that really don't understand how websites work and their process? Like they think, oh, somebody went to Google, they went to my site, and I'm now 5% all in the jerk. No, they're almost done. At this point, they're at the point now that they're desperate, or not just, they've hit a roadblock and they can't proceed until they basically talk to you.
yeah, and that roadblock better be very at the end of the journey, or
Yeah.
else they go somewhere else.
Yeah. I'm kind of surprised we don't see more construction companies actually trying to sell more things online. Because we're
Yeah, it'd be
starting to see
interesting.
some home builders, you can basically buy a house online. You can buy a car online and have it delivered to your house. Like,
Yeah,
I think that's where some of this is going. And obviously, it's not going to be super complex. It's going to be kind of a cookie cutter from one place to another.
sure.
Um, and the people that are going to do it are the ones that are going to do like 3D printing, 3D printing concrete building. Okay.
Yeah.
You could stand up a retail strip center pretty quick doing that.
Yeah,
You know,
and if you had the cookie cutter online, it was 90%, but that last 10%, they'd
yeah,
probably reach out to ask you about, those customizations.
totally. But what if you got an order for a $3 million retail strip center on your website?
That'd be awesome, and then you'd
Yeah.
make a press release out of it and, get everywhere.
Yeah. Yeah. Let them do all the specs and stuff. I mean, No, it's not about taking the value, just take the order. You know?
Yeah. Exactly. Cool. Man, I love your stories. Obviously, I agree. There's lots of opportunity for construction companies.
Yeah,
If you're in the tech area, it's very competitive, and those competitive advantages can disappear within weeks or days. But I
yeah,
think a lot of ideas in other industries could benefit a lot of construction companies.
yeah. I think one of the things I've always tried to, even though I've been very focused on construction, I try to look at other industries and say, okay, what can we apply, to this industry? What can we apply to my clients or my brands, and try to see stuff because there is some stuff like that, like the silly coloring sheet page. Where did that come from? Was on the weekends I'm printing out color sheets for my kids, and there's only so much like Disney princess coloring sheets I want to be looking for. So I'm like, why don't we have a robot coloring sheet? So I Googled it. I was like, wow, these are horrible. It's like we should do this ourselves. It didn't really didn't take that long. So just some of those things. Just look around. And yes, you buying stuff yourself is very different than buying a building or a road. But there is some similarities. You're still a human. You're still emotionally attached. And I've got to remind a lot of my clients, we still make irrational emotional decisions that we try to justify with logic. So that's a tough one to spell. So a good brand that has some personality is actually much easier to be emotionally attached to.
Absolutely. Great. Well, great stories. Sort of
Appreciate it.
brought out a lot of, hope it brings out a lot of thinking and curiosity around this topic. If they want to get a hold of you, what do they do?
Best place where you found me, LinkedIn. So the only Perryn Olson on LinkedIn.
Perfect. Well, thanks for coming on.
I appreciate it.